Before this video starts, I just want to give a massive shout out to all my channel members. If you want to receive a shout out, then become a channel member today and you'll be shown on screen like all these other channel members here. Anyways, enjoy the video. In version 14.5, we get to see the return of the Evangelion collab, and along with it comes some brand new units. One of the following units is a legend rare, this being the Messenger of Moonset Kaworu. This legend rare, like some of the other Eva Ubers, is a variant of a Fest unit. In this case, they're a variant of Izanami of Eventide. However, they do differ in some areas, and in this video, I want to go over what this unit does, how well he does as a unique unit, and how well he compares to Izanami. The footage in this video is of a level 50 Kaworu. Being a variant of Izanami, he shares many of the same attributes as her. By looking at his stats, he has a health stat of 102,000. Kaworu also deals insane damage to traitless enemies. Because Kaworu has a split LD, his effective raw damage is 12,750, and his effective damage against traitless is 63,750. This in turn makes his effective raw DPS 2,034, or an effective 10,171. He also sports a 40% chance to knockback traitless, is a Sage Slayer, and sports immunities to Slow, Wave, and Explosion. He also comes with the Spirit, who slows all enemies for 4.33 seconds or 5.1 seconds against treasure traits, and weakens them for 5 seconds or 6 seconds against treasure traits. This summon is extremely helpful in making sure a wide group of enemies can't push at all, with Slow making enemies move at a sluggish pace, while Weaken prevents enemies from killing your meat shields and melee units. Seeing as Kaworu is an Eva killer, here's a quick table of what his stats look like against Eva Angels, without and with the Eva killer combo. The large stats are what you expect for an Eva killer, and this lets it be helpful in many of the collab stages. Kaworu is an anti-traitless nuker who is capable of dealing tons of damage across a wide range of the field, being able to hit enemies all the way up to 850 range. This allows Kaworu to snipe basically any traitless enemy in the game. His DPS for an anti-traitless is also extremely solid, as being able to quickly dispatch many traitless threats in a speedy manner allows him to relieve a ton of pressure off the field for your other units. Having direct counters to traitless enemies before the endgame can be extremely difficult to come by, so if you get him relatively early, then his value as an anti-traitless attacker will skyrocket. One notable difference between him and Izanami is the secondary ability. For Kaworu, this would be his knockback, which has a 40% chance to activate. This can allow you to regain lost ground from tankier traitless enemies. While you would expect to be able to actively chain an enemy into a second hit with this knockback ability, unfortunately, Kaworu's time between each of his hits is actually too fast for it to work. The time between each of Kaworu's hits is 10 frames, while the knockback ability lasts 12 frames. Also, considering that Kaworu could deal enough damage to knock back most traitless enemies in a single hit, especially at higher levels, this knockback rarely gets to see use outside of more beefy traitless enemies like Mr. Mer and the Sloth. Kaworu has a different set of immunities compared to Izanami. Kaworu sports Slow, Wave, and Explosion immunities. Wave immunity is a very solid immunity for Kaworu, considering plenty of traitless enemies use waves. Some of these including Boar Jr., Mr. Mer, Corrupted Maneko, Hermit Cat, as well as the Legs and Titan family of enemies. A lot of these enemies are fairly large threats, so having the means to effectively counter them allows him to get a lot of use here. The wave immunity is also helpful in stages where there is a significant traitless threat in stages with waivers, like Slave to Energy. As for his other two immunities, Slow and Explosion immunity don't really have the largest amount of value, though in the case of Explosion immunity, it mainly comes down to a lack of applicability. Slow immunity mainly makes it so he has an easier time reaching Crockley. The only other traitless enemy who can slow is the Titans, who he already deals with due to wave immunity, and Doremi, where Kaworu isn't exactly the strongest unit for. Kaworu had also received the ability to be a Sage Slayer. As for the specific traitless Sage enemies, the only one is Dogenstein, who is a peon, so this ability currently only has application in stages that feature a mix of Sage and traitless enemies. Against Sages, he has 204,000 HP and deals 15,000 damage, or 76,000 damage against Dogenstein at level 30. His wave immunity and weaken resist does make it so he can fend off the traitless threats in stages that feature Dark Dober, such as Phantom Bluebird and Automatic Avoidance. However, outside of this situation, the Sage Slayer doesn't get a lot of value, and won't really get value until the major traitless Sage is released. Now, seeing as Kaworu is a variant of Izanami, I suppose it's best to actively compare the two to see where their differences lie. Izanami is slightly tankier than Kaworu, though in return, Kaworu is able to deal slightly more damage. However, in saying that, Izanami has the means to further boost her damage with Savage Blow, while Kaworu doesn't have any way to let him deal even more damage. They share the exact same cost, knockbacks, range, including their LDs, and cooldowns. In terms of abilities, Izanami sports Savage Blow, as mentioned earlier, but Kaworu sports both Sage Slayer and Knockback. However, Izanami's Savage Blow, on average, will get a lot more mileage out of it over both of Kaworu's abilities. For immunities, I would say that while Izanami generally has the better set of immunities, Kaworu does have Wave Immunity, and seeing as a ton of Waver enemies are traitless, this does give him a lot of value in this department. Sadly, his other two immunities aren't all too helpful, as explained earlier. Last are their two spirits. Izanami's spirit is more of a mix of the Breaker Blast and Thunderbolt cannons, with them both knocking back enemies and freezing them. Kaworu's spirit both slows and weakens enemies. I would say both spirits are great at doing their job of controlling the field for a short while. So, how good is Messenger of Moonset Kaworu? As a standalone unit, Kaworu is a very strong anti-traitless unit, being able to nuke plenty of them with just a single attack or two. His wave immunity allows him to be very useful for a wide group of rather aggressive enemies. His knockback isn't exactly the best, not because the ability is bad, but rather the fact that he rarely gets to utilize it due to just being able to trigger a natural knockback through sheer damage alone. His slow immunity is rather niche, and both Explosion Immunity and Sage Slayer lack any sort of applicability. However, if one were to own Izanami, then this unit generally doesn't perform as well compared to her, due to the lack of Savage Blow and only having one useful immunity compared to Izanami getting value out of all three of her immunities. If you have Izanami, then it's probably just better to use her 9 times out of 10 over Kaworu, though if you don't have her, then Kaworu is still an amazing anti-traitless unit to use. With all that said, I want to thank you for watching this analysis of Messenger of Moonset Kaworu. If you thought this insight was interesting, then be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy BattleCat's content, and comment down below your thoughts on Moonset Kaworu. I'd love to hear what you all think of them. Also, shout out to the following channel members: Dr. Deadly, Gamet, Ian Dean, Ninja Stars, Virus El Perro, Just a Shark, Potato King, Gross Cat the Best, Tentacle Gaming, and Atsushi for being silver members or higher. If you want to receive a shout out like these channel members here, then become a silver member or higher today. Becoming a channel member supports what I do in a way that helps keep the lights on, and channel members receive an exclusive role in my Discord server, for which you can find a link to in the description down below. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day.